Hello lovely people! So as a part of my collection series I finally decided to do my blushes and actually added my bronzers to this because I feel like I've acquired a few bronzers since the last time that I did my bronzer collection video, and we're also going to do a small declutter while we're at it. I don't expect to get rid of too much, but I think some of these things are gonna go. So without further rambling, because we have a lot to go through, let's just go into the bronzers first. Alright, so this is my pretty modest bronzer collection. I don't really have like a very extensive bronzer collection because even though I like bronzing, I feel like I'm very loyal to the products that I like. So let's start off with the cream bronzers because I feel like nothing's going to be decluttered in there anyway. These are my 4 cream bronzers and they're all pretty unique in terms of their undertones, so I don't think any of them is going to be decluttered. This is my Chanel Soleil Tan de Chanel bronzer. This is one of my favorite bronzers. It's not going anywhere. This is still in the old formula, which I really enjoy. It has very yellowy undertones to it, but I do actually really like it. Then we have the Milk Makeup Baked bronzer, which is one of my new favorite bronzers. This has much more like neutral tones to it, and I really enjoy this bronzer. Another bronzer that's relatively new but I really enjoy is this one from Fenty Beauty. Is their Cheeks Out Honey Glaze bronzer. Gorgeous, especially for the summer and if you're doing like somewhat warmer looks, because it has very beautiful warm undertones to it. It's like a little bit deeper than the Chanel bronzer, but it still has those warmer undertones to it. And this one from Nude Sticks, actually for the longest time thought that it was a cream blush, and I mean you can use stuff for whatever the fuck you want, and I always open this from the wrong side. This is the shade Deep Maple Air, and it is a very interesting shade actually. See, it has very like mauve brown tones to it, and for the longest time I thought that this was a blush, and I've actually been using it as a blush, and I recently discovered that it's technically a bronzer. Now let's go through my powder bronzers and contours, and the only contour powder I have is this one from Notoriously Morbid in the shade Giant. I'm struggling a little bit what to do with this one because it is a perfect contouring shade for me, but I never fucking contour, like ever. I haven't used this powder in at least 2 years, so I think I'm actually going to pass this on. Next up is this bronzer from MAC. This is the shade Delphic. Mine comes in this limited edition packaging, but actually the blush itself is just available in their regular line. It's in their Studio Sculpt Defining line, and it is absolutely stunning. It's not going anywhere. I don't know whether you can see how much of that print I've already used up. I really love this bronzer. It is very similar to the one from Chanel and Fenty Beauty, and it has a little bit of a sheen. It's not a flat matte bronzer. Then we have the Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer, and I have a full size of this. It's going to be really hard to get through this bronzer because you need the smallest amount. I'm not getting rid of this bronzer because it is one of the few cooler leaning bronzers in my collection, and I do actually use it more like a contour bronzer kind of product. So instead of this one, I would actually just pull something like this because it does look like more cool neutral on my skin. Next up we have the Too Faced Unicorn Tears bronzer. This was released a couple of years ago, and honestly it looked like a joke in the store when I swatched it, but then the actual product inside I do really like. It has this stupid unicorn here, which is supposed to be a highlighter, and then the actual bronzer has a sheen to it and the most beautiful undertone, and what I found out is that I can actually just mix the two like this, and I don't really get that much of that purple sheen, but just sometimes I see these like sparkly purpley things in the bronzer, and it doesn't really bother me too much, but I love the finish of this bronzer because it is so glowy and dewy on the skin, and I do love the undertone, so I'm definitely keeping it. I also have the very famous Butter bronzer from Physicians Formula. I went through a time when I could not stop using this bronzer, and then I kind of forgot about it, so I think I'm going to try to use it a little bit more this year because it is actually a really lovely bronzer. It's a very low fuss kind of bronzer in the sense that you can never go overboard, and as you can see it's very light even on my light skin tone. This is the Body Shop bronzer in the shade 01, which is the only like more pinky leaning bronzer that I have in my collection. It has this gorgeous like honeycomb pattern on it, which I've already worn off quite a bit. I can actually feel almost a pan coming up in here, but it is a very light color. It leans a little bit more pink, so when I do more cool toned looks, I do like to reach for this bronzer sometimes also instead of the Too Faced one, because it's just so much less fuss. And the last bronzer in my collection is this one from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is the shade Rich Amber. Oh my goodness, I am never going to go through this bronzer. It is extremely pigmented. You need the smallest amount, and I have a full size of it. If I could share this bronzer with someone, I gladly would. It is a very nice color. As you can see, also compared to a lot of my other bronzers, it has a very interesting undertone to it, and I do really like it. It has, when you put it on the skin, I feel like it tends to pull much more reddish than when I put it here. Here it almost looks like it has a very neutral undertone, but on my skin it actually pulls a little bit more red, and I really like the undertone of this bronzer. The only thing I don't like about it, and as something I've just generally moved away from, is this like very strong matte finish, which both this bronzer and the one from Too Faced have, and that's the only thing I really don't like about these bronzers, that they're just so incredibly matte. I still use them, but I'm never going to go through this thing. Let's move into the blush category, and the first thing I want to do is declutter my little collection here of like blush palettes. I don't have that many, but let's just go through them and see whether anything can go. So the first thing that I want to show you is not going anywhere. This is my Becca Blushed with Light Blush Trio, which contains these 3 blushes. Stunning. I love this thing because I travel with it. This is my travel blush palette because it literally gives me every single shade that I would want in a blush, but in this very small and portable format. And I for one actually really enjoy the formula of Becca blushes. This one in particular is just so beautiful. Look at that. It has a beautiful sheen on it and this gorgeous like tan orange shade to it. Really, really lovely. Next up we have the Love Flush blush palette from Too Faced. This I bought many years ago when I was visiting Portugal at a time that getting Too Faced was incredibly difficult in the Netherlands. Now not anymore, now we even have Too Faced over here, but back in the day it was very hard to get my hands on Too Faced, and when I saw this particular palette I was like, I absolutely need to have this. Now I actually really enjoy the blush formula of Too Faced, even though they are matte blushes. Baby Love is my absolute favorite, one of my absolute favorite blushes of all time. It's not really sure. I feel like on my cheeks this shows up much more neutral. It's pulling very pink here on my skin, but it actually pulls a bit more like a nudie pink when I actually put it on my cheeks. I also really love this color, the color I Will Always Love You, which is more of like in orange. I do enjoy all the colors in here. You can see that some of these have been more loved than others, and you will actually see these 2 coming back in full size, because at one point I was mortified that I may run out of them, and I asked for them as presents for my birthday a couple of years ago, which in hindsight was probably stupid because I haven't even finished these yet. Why the fuck did I need the full sizes? Which leads me to potentially deciding to declutter this little palette. This shade and this shade I've still gotten quite a bit of use out of because they're very pretty shades. But that being said, realistically speaking, I only use these 2 and I already have them in a full size. So I think the smart thing to do is actually pass this along before the formula has gotten completely crap and died on me. So I think I'm actually going to give this away. This is hard because I really loved this palette and it's such a nice memory from a visit to Portugal several years ago. Now this one is a real throwback. This is the Tarte Bling It On blush palette, which as you can see I've also used quite extensively, especially this color here, the color Prim. It is very similar to Baby Love from Too Faced. It's again those like nudie pink tones, and I do really like this blush quite a bit. See how beautiful it looks like? Oh, gorgeous. I also like the shade Fetching. It's so strange, swatching them here really isn't a representation of how they actually look on my cheeks. I also really enjoy these 2 shades here, the more like coral and orange, and I actually like mixing them together when I use them, because this one in particular is very light and has silver flecks in it, and I feel like alone on my cheeks. It looks a little too pastel, so I like to layer it over top of this one. I think I'm going to keep this one for now and maybe just try to use it up a little bit more this year, but might not survive another declutter. Now here's a real throwback for you. This is the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani Blush and Bronzer palette from, the Gwen Stefani collection with Urban Decay. I have used this quite a lot, especially when I got it several years ago. I used to use it all the time. I used to use this as a bronzer, all of these here as blushes, and this one as a highlighter. Now, I haven't used this palette much in the past year or so, so I think I'm going to try to use it a little bit more intensively this year and try to decide what I want to do with it, because I'm definitely keeping the packaging of this, but I have been toying with the idea of getting rid of these and just pressing other products in here that I use more often. So this one is kind of pending. Definitely keeping the packaging because I love it and I loved that collection so much. And last but not least, we have the Coral Spectrum from Zoeva, which is these 4 colors. They are all in a more like matte finish, and I don't use this palette enough because I always forget that I have it. So this one definitely needs to just be brought out a little bit more often, and I am planning a video series. I finally figured out a Shop My Stash format that might work for me, so I'm going to try to include this in Shop My Stash to decide what I should do with it, because I'm not sure that I wanted to keep it. The few times that I have used it, I felt like the blushes were a little bit chalky and I wasn't enjoying them as much as I thought I would. But it was a gift for my birthday several years ago, so I want to make sure that I'm really convinced of my decision to let it go. And these, you guys, are my single cream and powder blushes, so let's just go through them real quick. I'm going to start with the cream ones. I do have here 2 from Colourpop as well, which probably would be considered creams as well. So let's just start off. This is a Kiko blush duo from a limited edition collection I got several years ago. This is Coral Vibes. And these are exactly my kind of colors when it comes to blush. I do really like the formula of this. I do layer the 2 over top of each other. I don't really use them individually, but I really like the little golden sheen that's running through the lighter orange shade. And when you layer them together, it just looks so beautiful and fresh on the skin. I'm definitely keeping this. This one of the Super Shock Cheek blushes from Colourpop. This is the shade Between the Sheets, which is once again one of those nudie mauve colors that I really enjoy in a blush as well. I have used it quite a bit, as you can see, and I think I'm going to try to use up a bit more of it this year. So this one I'm definitely going to keep for now, and again it's pulling so much more purple here than it does on my cheek. Then we have this one, which is the color Trickery, and I'm actually not sure I want to keep this color. I don't use it much, and from what I can tell it's starting to dry out a little bit. It's a very pretty color. It's a very vibrant, like coral pink, but I don't really use it and it has started to go off, I feel like, so I might get rid of this one. I'm not going to use it. Okay, next we have this little cute dude here from Milk Makeup. This is the shade Werk, and I'm not getting rid of this because I really enjoy it. It is a wonderful formula, a wonderful tone of the blush. It has a little bit of luminosity to it, which I really enjoy. This is a gorgeous blush. I'm keeping it. We also have this Kiko Velvet Touch Cream Stick blush in the shade 07. Again, one of those nudie pinks. I really enjoy this blush. I'm also not going to get rid of this because I still use it quite a bit. Oh, this was quite a heavy swatch that I did there. I really enjoy this blush. I'm going to keep it. And last but not least, we have the only liquid blush that I have in my collection. This is the Suku Shimmering Liquid Blush in the shade 03. I am not getting rid of this blush because it is one of my favorite blushes in my collection. I love the formula of this blush. I like the color, I like the finish on the cheeks, I love everything about it. Let me show you a little bit here when you shear it out what the color looks like. Yeah, it is the perfect like coral leaning more orange. I prefer corals that pull more orange than corals that pull more pink, because pink is not such a flattering color on my cheeks. However, a coral that pulls orange is a very flattering color, so I'm definitely clearly keeping this. Okay, moving on into powder blushes. I'm going to start off with this Anastasia Beverly Hills Trio in the shade Pool Party, and I can already tell you I'm going to declutter this because I don't really like the formula on this. I do like the shades in here, except for this one, it's just not my kind of shade. However, these two are exactly the types of blushes that I like. There's something about the formula of these blushes. They swatch beautifully, or at least one of them swatched beautifully, this one, and this is exactly the kind of like nudie pink that I love to wear, but there's just something about the formula that I don't like, so I'm getting rid of this one. I'm going to try to sell it or pass it along because I never use it. Oh, I can see quite a lot of blushes that I'm going to get rid of in this little compartment. I think I'm actually going to finally get rid of this Catrice blush, which I've been keeping for years and years because I actually really like it. It's that nudie pink with a little bit of a silver sheen to it. And it is a pretty blush. It is a very unique tone of blush, but I don't wear it often enough and I just don't think I'm going to get enough use out of it. I've kept it for so long and I pull it once a year or something, but I think it's time for it to go. Then we have this little Tarte Mini over here in the shade Thankful, which was part of a holiday gift set that I received from a friend a couple of years ago. You can already see from the crazy color of this blush that this is not my type of color. It is a very, very bubblegum sort of pink, and I don't really wear bubblegum pink blush, so I don't know why I insist on keeping this blush. I think it's because it was a gift and I have a very hard time parting with shit that was gifts. But it is time for me to let go of this blush and give it to someone who's going to get more use out of it because it's just rotting in my collection. Alrighty, Dandelion from Benefit, a little mini that I have. It is a fine blush. It is a fine formula, it is a nice color, but frankly I don't like the bulkiness of this packaging. I don't think the blush is something all that special, and I just think maybe in someone else's hands this is going to be loved so much more. So I'm getting rid of Dandelion as well. I'm doing really well with the blushes. Oh, I forgot this little dude here when we were talking about cream blushes. This is new to my collection. This is the Fenty Fuego Flush Cheeks Out cream blush. It is one of the most unique blushes in my collection. It is a straight up orange with golden sparkle through it, and I am going to keep it because it is such an interesting shade and I do actually enjoy the formula of Fenty's cream blushes. So this one's going into my cream blush collection and not going to be decluttered. Alright, what do we got here? We got this little dude from H&M. This is the shade Rose Brown. And I can tell you I'm definitely keeping this because again it is one of those like nudie mauve brown sort of blushes that I like so much. It is such a gorgeous color. It has a little bit of a sheen to it. There is a shade from H&M. It's called Spicy Pepper. I've been lusting after that one for the longest time, so now that I'm making a little bit more space in my blush collection, I might actually finally treat myself to the shade Spicy Pepper. Like I mentioned, I have full sizes of I Will Always Love You and Baby Love. Obviously they are not going anywhere because they are my kind of colors in a blush. A nudie brown mauve and a orangey peach. Definitely keeping those, and now that I've gotten rid of the palette I can finally focus on using these instead of torturing myself every time. What shall I use, the singles or the palette? This is not going anywhere. This is the Nabla Skin Glazing in the shade Truth. This is the most gorgeous, luminous, peachy orange. I adore this blush. Look how gorgeous. Look at that luminosity. Oh, it is so, so beautiful. As soon as Nabla comes with like more burnt orange, pumpkin kind of colors and maybe something a little bit more like in the nude, brown, rosy family, I will pick that up as well. I think maybe one of their colors is that like nudie brown shade, but I have been holding off getting it because I really want a nice cinnamony color in this particular formula. This formula is stunning. This one's going to be quite the torture again because I love the packaging of this. This is a Tarte... What is this? This is considered to be like a bronzing blush. This is the Park Avenue Princess in Pink Bronze. I can really try to swatch this for you, but I can tell you you're not really going to see anything because it has such a hard pan on it that I can never get anything out of it. This is what happens when you mix all the colors. Let's see if you can actually see anything. And I chose the stupidest place on my hand. Yeah, you're actually not going to see anything because hardly anything is coming out of here. I think I might do the same that I've been planning on doing with the Gwen Stefani palette. I might get rid of this actual product and repan something in here that I enjoy to use more. So I'm going to keep this mostly because of the packaging, but not because of the actual product in there. And this is my last blush compartment, you guys. Let's start off with this MAC Duo. This is a limited edition from several years ago from the Nutcracker collection. This is the Copper Face Compact, which comes with a highlighter and a blush. The blush is in the shade Pleasure Model, and this is the infamous Whisper of Guilt. I'm definitely keeping this because these are the extra dimension formula of MAC, which I absolutely adore. Not to mention that this color has the most beautiful bronzy tone to it. Look how gorgeous and luminous that is. I'm never getting rid of this. I actually want to get more MAC blushes in this particular formula because they look stunning on the skin. I am of course not getting rid of my Cover FX Warm Honey. It is one of my newest blushes. I recently mentioned this in my 2020 beauty favorites. I'm definitely keeping this blush because it has a beautiful formula, a gorgeous undertone, and I love everything about it. Look how gorgeous that is. Definitely keeping that. We have two Makeup Geek blushes hiding in here. This is the shade, well, this is not the shade Romance. This is another shade that I put in here that I now can't remember the name of, but it's like a, I don't know, like a pastel orange type of shade, and it looks really flattering on my skin, so I'm definitely going to keep it. I actually had this blush, I panned it, and this is the second one that I bought. I don't actually have another color like this in my collection, so I'm going to keep this. This is the shade Spellbound, also from Makeup Geek, and I have used the shit out of this blush because it's a very beautiful, like more neutral mauve color, and it looks very flattering on my skin, so I'm going to keep this one as well. I have two Becca blushes here. One is the shade Tiger Lily, which is a gorgeous coral orange with a golden sheen to it. I love this blush so very much. Definitely not getting rid of it because it has the most beautiful sheen and the most gorgeous orange undertone to it. And the other one is Wild Honey, also not getting rid of this because this is a gorgeous, like nudie bronzy brown. Let me swatch it for you. Yeah, check it out. Look what a gorgeous color that is, which doesn't lean to orange, it doesn't lean to mauve, it doesn't lean to anything. It's just a very nude kind of color for the cheeks. I love it. Then we have the famous Milani Luminoso, which I actually used recently. Not sure whether you can see it, but this usually has quite like the dome on it because it's a baked blush, and my dome is almost gone because I really like this blush. It has a bit of those like peachy orange tones to it, and it has a luminous finish to it, and I really love it. I used it recently just to make sure that I still enjoy it, and I still do very much enjoy it, so I'm definitely keeping Milani Luminoso as well. Here we have another limited edition MAC blush. This is in the shade Sweet Vision. Such a gorgeous, once again, orangey peach with a golden sheen to it. So fucking stunning, look at this, oh my goodness. Definitely not getting rid of this because it has the most beautiful coral tones to it with a golden shift. Just absolutely stunning. And in that very same line, we have here, this is not the MAC Toledo blush that came into this compact. I actually rehomed Makeup Geek blush into here. This is the shade Romance, which is once again that coral with a golden sheen to it. I actually bought this back when everyone was raving how this shade is a dupe for the NARS Orgasm blush, and I actually like this so much more than Orgasm. Orgasm was so much more pink and it had literal golden glitter into it. I really didn't like that blush, but I like this one so much more. It's like a more subdued version of this one from MAC. So this is my total count of bronzer slash blushes that I'm getting rid of. I'm only getting rid of this contouring powder from, whoops, Notoriously Morbid. I'm getting rid of this Love Flush blush palette from Too Faced. I'm getting rid of this little trio from Anastasia, and a little bit of single blushes that are a mix and match Tarte, Catrice, Benefit and Colourpop. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!